The morning light arrived slowly, like a breath the forest had been holding all night. Mist floated between the tall trees, wrapping every leaf in silver. The air smelled of wet bark and flowers heavy with dew. In the heart of this quiet green world, a mountain gorilla named Kano stood motionless on a low ridge. His broad chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths as he watched the first rays of sun pour through the canopy. He was a silverback, the leader of his troop, a quiet guardian, powerful yet patient. Around him, the jungle began to stir. Young gorillas tumbled in the grass, slapping at beetles and tugging playfully on vines. A mother groomed her baby's fur with careful fingers. Nearby, an older female chewed on tender shoots, pausing only to glance up when Kano gave a low, rumbling grunt, a sound of calm, a reminder that all was well. Birdsong rippled through the forest like falling rain. Parrots called from above, and the distant sound of flowing water echoed through the valley below. Everything seemed at peace, bound by the steady rhythm of nature, the hum of insects, the drip of dew, the soft creak of trees swaying in the wind. But peace in the jungle is always fragile. It lives only in the space between storms. Beyond the grove where Kano's family moved, the forest opened into a patch of sunlit grassland. There, a baby rhino named Tula trotted after her mother. Her small horn was no longer than a finger, her skin soft and gray, still carrying the scent of youth. She chased butterflies through the tall grass, her stubby legs kicking up small clouds of dust. Her mother, a giant with a hide thick as armor, grazed near the edge of the ranger's camp, a safe zone, or so it was thought. The morning breeze carried the faint clatter of metal, the scent of smoke, and something else, something strange and sharp, like burned rope. Tula's mother lifted her head, nostrils flaring. For a moment, she froze. Then she went back to grazing, though her tail flicked in quiet unease. The baby rhino noticed nothing. She was busy exploring the edge of a shallow stream, fascinated by her own reflection. High above, Kano watched from the trees. Gorillas are not predators of rhinos, nor allies. But Kano's world was one of observation, of sensing before acting. His amber eyes followed movement, sound, and scent with the patience of a king. He saw the small rhino and her mother every few days, wandering near the forest's edge. The rhino pair had become part of the land's rhythm, another family under the same wide sky. Yet today felt different. The forest carried a new silence, a weight in the air that pressed against the senses. Even the cicadas seemed hesitant. A black crow landed on a branch nearby, its cry sharp and harsh. Kano's head lifted. He sniffed the wind, a subtle twitch of the nostrils, then a low grunt of warning. His troop fell quiet, instinctively following his lead. Kano turned toward the valley, scanning the edges of the trees. Something there caught the morning light, a glint that didn't belong. It flickered, vanished, then returned. He took a few steps forward, his large hands brushing through the leaves. His senses sharpened. Beneath the smell of earth and rain, he caught another scent, bitter, unnatural, metallic. It reminded him of the old danger, the kind that came from two-legged shadows that moved through the jungle with loud sticks and strange traps. Far below, Tula's mother began to move deeper into the trees, calling softly for her calf. Tula hesitated, her ears twitching. She had found something curious on the ground, a pile of green vines that didn't quite smell like vines. When she nudged it with her nose, it gave off a faint, plastic scent. She snorted and took a step back, then stepped forward again, testing it with a gentle push. The net didn't move. Beneath the grass, it was pegged deep into the soil. The forest shifted again. A gust of wind whispered through the canopy, carrying the distant echo of thunder. It was not yet storm season, but the air felt electric. Kano's gaze lingered on the rhino calf for a long moment before turning back to his family. He motioned with a low hoot. Time to move. The troop began their slow climb toward higher ground, their black fur glistening in the sun. But Kano stayed behind a little longer. He knelt beside a patch of disturbed soil, pressing his fingers into the earth. Broken twigs, a heel mark, too narrow to belong to an animal. The scent was clear now. Humans had been here. Recently, he turned his head toward the clearing once more, his eyes narrowing. Tula and her mother were small specks now, moving toward the far side of the valley. Between them and the forest's safety lay a silent line of nylon nets, stretched like invisible fangs across the grass. The camera pans close, the nets glimmering threads hidden under leaves. The faintest tremble as a breeze passes. Kano stood motionless, the light catching the silver fur on his back. For a long time, he listened, not just with his ears, but with instinct. The forest told him everything if he was patient enough to hear it. The drumming of insects had changed pitch. Birds had flown higher. Even the river's flow seemed hurried. As if the land itself sensed danger, he let out a deep rumble, a sound older than words, part warning, part sorrow. Then, finally, he turned and disappeared into the green shadows. The day moved forward, the sun climbing higher, erasing the mist. To anyone watching from above, it was a scene of harmony. A troop of gorillas moving through emerald trees, a pair of rhinos grazing under the open sky, light flickering on leaves like falling stars. But beneath that beauty, something dark waited, coiled and ready by late afternoon. The forest grew heavy with heat. The air shimmered. Dust clung to every step. The birds were quiet again. A sense of stillness crept back in, but it was not peace this time. It was anticipation. Near the stream, Tula splashed her feet in the cool water. She chirped softly, a high-pitched sound only her mother could understand. Her mother answered with a low grunt, eyes half closed as she chewed another mouthful of grass. Neither noticed how close they had come to the edge of the invisible line. And then, a crow cawed sharply from above, breaking the stillness. The jungle fell silent once more. Kano, far away now but still within hearing distance, froze mid-step. His head tilted. That sound, short, panicked, was a signal. The forest was warning him again. The sun lowered behind the ridge, painting the sky in amber and blood-orange light. Every color seemed too bright, every sound too thin. Somewhere between the grass and the forest, a shadow moved. Not an animal, but something man-made. Something left behind by human greed. The baby rhino took one more step toward it. The screen fades to black. The jungle holds its breath. Tomorrow will break the calm. The scream shattered the afternoon silence. That it came from somewhere. Near the tree lean, high-pitched, panicked, raw. A sound that didn't belong to the rhythm of the jungle. Birds exploded from the canopy in a storm of wings. Monkeys fled into the branches. Even the insects seemed to go quiet. For one sharp heartbeat, the entire forest froze, and then everything moved at once. Kano, the great silverback, was already on his feet before thought could catch up. The sound hit him deep, not as curiosity, but as instinct. It wasn't the cry of his own kind, yet it carried something familiar, fear. The kind of fear only the helpless make. He turned his head toward the valley, nostrils flaring. Beneath the thick scent of heat and sap and dust, he caught something else, the sharp sting of gasoline and metal. A human smell that he broke into a run. Branches whipped against his shoulders as he thundered through the forest, each stride shaking the ground. Leaves scattered in his wake. His breath came in short, deep bursts, the sound of power and purpose. Around him, shafts of sunlight flickered through the canopy like flashes of lightning. The cry came again, shorter now, weaker. He followed it. When he reached the clearing, the air was thick with dust. The baby rhino, Tula, was trapped, tangled in a snare of rope and nylon, her small body twisted in fear. The net dug deep into her skin each time she struggled. Her wide eyes reflected the sky, full of confusion. She tried to cry again, but the ropes around her neck choked the sound before it could rise. Her tiny hooves kicked helplessly against the earth, sending up small clouds of dirt and broken grass. Kano stopped at the edge of the clearing, his massive body hidden by shadow. He saw the trembling calf, the torn earth around her, the scent trail leading toward the road. Poachers. They had laid the trap and gone, planning to return when the cries stopped, but they hadn't counted on him. Kano stepped forward. Slowly, cautiously, his breath came out in low grunts, meant not to frighten, but to calm. The baby's eyes turned toward him, wide and wet. She stilled for a second, just long enough for him to see how tightly the ropes cut across her chest. Her body shook with every shallow breath that he moved closer, until his shadow fell over her. Tula kicked again, instinct taking over. The net snapped tighter. Kano flinched as she squealed, a sound that sliced through him like a blade. He pounded his chest. Once, hard. A burst of sound that rolled through the clearing. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. A message to the forest, to anyone watching. This creature is not prey. Then he knelt beside her. The ropes were thick, rough, soaked with dirt and oil. He tugged at one. It didn't give. He tried another, pulling with both hands. The nylon cut into his fingers, drawing small beads of blood, but he didn't stop. Each pull sent tremors through his body, a silent battle between brute strength and human cruelty. The camera lingers here, close on his hands, veins bulging, ropes tightening. The faint wheeze of the calf's breath beneath his own. A bird shrieked overhead. Kano froze. From somewhere beyond the trees came a new sound, the distant growl of an engine. A vehicle. The poachers were returning. He looked down at Tula. She was running out of time. Her eyes fluttered. Her breaths came faster now, desperate. He bared his teeth, gripping the net with both arms. His muscles tensed, shoulders rising, back curving like a drawn bow. He pulled. The rope creaked, stretched, then snapped. Tula collapsed onto her side, gasping, the sudden freedom leaving her too stunned to move. Kano ripped through the rest of the net, tearing it away piece by piece until only scraps remained on the ground. Then he stepped back, chest heaving, watching the small rhino struggle to stand. For a moment, there was silence. Dust hung in the air like smoke. The light broke through the canopy, turning every particle into gold. Tula blinked at him, still trembling, her small sides rising and falling. And in that moment, that single, impossible heartbeat, the wild forgot its boundaries to gorilla and a rhino calf, predator and prey to none, simply looked at each other. Kano's breath slowed. He could hear her tiny heart racing, faster than his own. He took one careful step closer, lowering his head. The calf didn't move. She just stared, too exhausted to fear him. He reached out, his massive hand hovering above her flank, close enough to feel the heat of her skin. Then he touched her, lightly, almost reverently. The jungle seemed to exhale, but peace never lasts long in places like this. The sound of the truck grew louder. Tires grinding on gravel. Voices, low at first, then shouting. The poachers had seen the movement. Kano's head snapped toward the noise. His eyes darkened. The air around him shifted, the quiet guardian replaced by the warrior the jungle once feared. He rose to his full height, chest wide, arms hanging heavy at his sides. The smell of human sweat and metal flooded the clearing again. He turned toward the trees and roared. The sound tore through the air like thunder. Birds erupted from the branches in waves. The forest itself seemed to tremble. The men froze at the edge of the path. They couldn't see him yet, but they could hear him, and that was enough. Kano pounded his chest, each strike echoing like a drumbeat of defiance. Dust swirled around him. His eyes burned with fury. He wasn't roaring for his own kind now. He was roaring for hers, for Tula. The men shouted back and scrambled toward their truck, the sound of metal clanging as doors slammed and the engine roared to life. The vehicle reversed fast, wheels skidding on loose stones. The smell of gasoline faded into the trees. When the noise was gone, the jungle went still again. Kano turned back to the calf. She had managed to stand, wobbling on weak legs. Her flank was cut, small lines of red against her gray hide. He grunted softly, lowering his head again. For a moment, they simply existed together, both breathing. Both alive. He stepped back into the shadows, just as the first sound of the Rangers' patrol echoed faintly in the distance. A motorbike humming somewhere beyond the ridge. Help would come, though neither of them could know that yet. Kano looked at her one last time. Then, with a final low rumble, he disappeared into the forest. Tula stood in the clearing alone, trembling but free. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, turning the broken net at her feet into threads of gold. She blinked, swayed once, and then took a small, unsure step toward the sound of her mother's distant call. The camera pulls back slowly, the clearing shrinking into a patch of light beneath endless green. The forest holds its silence. The only sound is breath, the breath of life that refused to be taken, somewhere in that silence. Mercy had found a voice. Absolutely. Here is your chapter 3. Written as a 1,000-word emotionally cinematic scene in the Wildlife Heroes style. expanding the summary you provided into a full, flowing narrative. Chapter 3. Mercy of the Wild. The last light of day stretched thin across the treetops, a wash of gold fading to ash. The jungle exhaled after the storm. Raindrops clung to every leaf like small pearls, trembling in the soft evening breeze. Mist curled through the undergrowth, carrying the smell of wet earth, crushed grass, and sap. In the clearing, beneath a torn patch of vines, the little rhino lay on her side, still, silent, but alive. Tula's breaths came in shallow bursts. Each one was a struggle, a tiny ripple in the puddle beside her mouth. Her legs twitched weakly, tangled in the shredded remains of the poacher's net. Above her, Kano, the great silverbacked gorilla, knelt in stillness. His chest rose and fell with heavy rhythm, steam rising faintly from his fur in the cooling air. His eyes, usually sharp and wild, were now filled with something softer. He reached out one trembling hand and brushed a clump of mud from her flank. The gesture was clumsy, yet gentle, as though he feared his strength might hurt her again. The storm had torn the forest apart, but in its wake it had also cleared the air. The leaves no longer rustled with panic. Even the insects hesitated, their song quiet and respectful. Kano stayed there for a long time, watching the tiny creature's chest move. He didn't understand the way humans named things like mercy or compassion. All he knew was the faint sound of her breathing, and that it mattered. From deep in the valley came a distant call, long, low, mournful. It rolled through the fog like thunder wrapped in sorrow. Tula's mother was searching. The sound made Kano lift his head. His ears flicked forward, alert. The baby stirred, as if she too recognized that voice from some buried instinct. Her nose quivered, drawing in the scent of her mother carried on the wind. Kano shifted his weight, glancing toward the sound, then back at Tula. The jungle's light dimmed around them, turning amber to blue. Fireflies blinked in the shadows. Somewhere far off, a branch cracked, the kind of sound that didn't belong to any animal that walked softly. Kano froze, his nostrils flaring. He knew that rhythm. Heavy boots on wet ground, the creak of metal, the faint click of a latch. The poachers were back. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Kano's muscles tensed, every instinct telling him to vanish. But he looked once more at the baby, too weak to move, and stayed. The noise grew louder. Whispers, the faint scrape of something metallic dragging through the brush. They were following the same trail of crushed vines and broken branches that the storm had left behind. Soon, the light of a torch licked across the trunks. Searching, Kano moved fast but silent. He scooped a handful of leaves and pressed them against the baby's side, masking the pale sheen of her skin. Then he crouched low, melting into the green, his massive frame blending with the shadows. His breath slowed to nothing. The men stepped into the clearing, their boots sinking into the wet earth. "Over here," one hissed. The beam of the flashlight swept across the ground, pausing on the shredded net. "Something got to her," another muttered. "The tracks, look. Big ones." The man knelt, tracing the prints in the mud. His fingers trembled slightly. "Gorilla," he whispered. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Even the torchlight seemed to tremble. Then, from beyond the ridge, a sound broke the silence. A deep mechanical growl, distant but growing closer. The men stiffened. Headlights flickered between the trees. A jeep. The rangers had heard the cries too. Panic rippled through the poachers. "Go," one barked. They snatched up their nets and rifles, vanishing back into the undergrowth as quickly as they'd come. Their voices faded, replaced by the steady hum of the approaching engine. The forest exhaled again, the tension lifting like mist after dawn. Kano rose slowly from the shadows. His eyes followed the glow of the headlights as they rolled nearer, bathing the clearing in pale light. The jeep stopped. Doors opened. Footsteps. Voices, calm, alert, human. "Hold the light steady," one ranger said. Another knelt beside the small body. "She's breathing." Kano watched from behind a curtain of leaves. The humans worked quickly, cutting the last strands of net, checking her pulse, covering her with a thin tarp. Their movements were precise, practiced, not hunters, but healers. For the first time that night, Kano's heart eased. Then one of the rangers turned, scanning the dark perimeter of the clearing. The beam of his flashlight swept across the undergrowth and found Kano's eyes. Time stopped. For one heartbeat, Jungle and human met in silence. No bars, no walls, no cages, just two beings joined by the fragile life between them. The ranger's eyes widened slightly, not in fear, but in awe. The gorilla's gaze stayed steady, calm. Behind them, Tula let out a faint cry, soft and trembling. The sound broke the spell. Kano stepped backward into the shadows. The ranger lowered his light, as though in respect. And then, just like smoke, the great gorilla was gone, his massive shape vanishing into the deep green maze from which he came. The jungle swallowed him whole. The rangers worked in quiet coordination. They lifted the baby gently into a canvas sling and carried her toward the jeep. "We'll call the sanctuary," one murmured. "If she makes it through the night, she'll live." As the engine started, the headlights swept once more across the clearing, across the empty space where the gorilla had been. Raindrops shimmered on the leaves like tears. The vehicle rumbled away, its sound fading down the muddy trail until all that remained was the chorus of frogs beginning their night song. Far up in the canopy, Kano climbed onto a branch slick with rain and looked out over the sleeping forest. The moon had risen, pale and full, turning the mist silver. From this height, he could see the faint movement of the jeep's lights disappearing into the distance. His chest rose once, then slowly fell. Below him, the jungle pulsed with life again. The danger had passed. Later that night, in the ranger station at the forest's edge, Tula lay beneath a canvas awning. A small lantern flickered nearby. Her breathing steadied. A ranger dabbed water on her dry lips. Outside, the wind rustled through the grass, carrying the echo of her mother's distant call, softer now, but full of promise. Back in the forest, Kano settled on the damp earth. The storm had washed away all traces of blood and struggle. Fireflies drifted through the dark like tiny stars. The gorilla's eyes followed them for a long time, his massive shoulders relaxing. In the soft light, he looked almost ancient, a shadow carved from patience and memory. When the moon reached its highest point, a faint cry floated across the valley again, a mother finding her child's scent. Kano tilted his head. Somewhere inside that cry was relief. He closed his eyes. The jungle breathed. Crickets sang. A single droplet fell from a leaf and struck the ground with the gentlest sound, like the punctuation of peace after chaos. And there, under the quiet glow of the moon, the forest seemed to whisper a truth older than language. Sometimes the wild doesn't wait for us to show mercy. It reminds us what mercy is,